About 2 years ago, I put in a $50 donation to a GoFundMe campaign. And the promise was that they would bring us a new RPG book. Now, I can already see what most of you are thinking. There are a dime a dozen out there of people you could donate to, and, well, you're not wrong. But my donation went out to a YouTuber that I actually didn't know too well, but I had heard a lot about. A famous YouTuber who was famed for his incredible knowledge of D&D and his rather charismatic nature. A man by the name of Matt Colville, and his new project to start something called Strongholds and Followers. And this is the results of over $1 million of donations. So without further ado, let's talk about that. What Strongholds and Followers is essentially an expansion to D&D 5e. And it goes over some of the things that Matt Colville tends to go over in his show. I purchased it for around $50 online when the project was starting up, and it took about 2 years to get around, which is a little longer than I was expecting, to be completely honest. But besides the point, let's look at Strongholds and Followers. Now, to start with, you get this beautiful cover art. This is a nice hardback D&D book. It's about the thickness of the player's handbook, maybe a little bit thinner here, if you can see. It's kind of more along the lines of, say, Vol's Guide to Everything, maybe a little bit thicker, or some of the other expansion books that you see for D&D 5e. Though I do admit it's got a little bit damaged on the edges there, but that's shipping, and really, what can you do about that? So, without further ado, let's open the page, and oh my lord, you get beautiful more artwork. And you turn it again, and you get a little thing dedicated to 28,918 Kickstarter followers. It wasn't GoFundMe. Kickstarter. You'd think I'd remember where I donated my money. I like the border work. It's nice pages. The pages are very nice. They're a little thin, and they're waxy, though I do like the waxy type feel. And you get the book broken up into 4 parts. You get the Strongholds, Followers, the Siege of Castle Rend, and an appendices. This is the main additional rules to the game that Matt Colville is adding into your world. The Followers is an extension of the Strongholds rules, and the Siege of Castle Rend is a short adventure that uses these things. And the appendices are just more some random homebrewed monsters and units that Matt Colville has made. I mean, it's nice. I like it. I like how it's color-coded. Though, let's get going to the book, and you'll see some of the issues I have with it. To start, you move on, and you get greeted by, well, Strongholds, the first chapter of the book. And to start, you have this glorious picture of a stronghold in the mountains. You can see some even soldiers marching up. Hopefully this is in screen. That is something I immediately loved about this book. The artwork, they did not skimp on. It feels professional. It doesn't feel like some homebrewed thing that somebody just put together in Photoshop. Just the calligraphy that's used, and it almost reminds me of the old text you would see in manuscripts from old monks and people of the Latin faith long ago. From aesthetics point of view, this book, 10 out of 10. I love it. It's got some beautiful artwork there. And something I loved was that each stronghold, they have a piece of art to show you what the stronghold looks like. And as I started reading through this, basically what a stronghold is, well, the place that your characters hold up in. It's recommended in D&D 5e that around level 7 to 10 that your players should have a home base, if not earlier. Someplace where they can come back and relax and feel like home. And that's really what this stronghold part is all about. They do a wonderful job showing you the different kinds of strongholds, each one tailored to the different classes that might be in your games. Strongholds for barbarians, strongholds for Bards, strongholds for your clerics, and a stronghold for your druid. And each one is not simply just a castle. This is things tailor-made to the class of the character. A barbarian might not like living in a castle, so maybe their stronghold is this big war camp that they bring the greatest soldiers from across the realms to. Bards don't really mix well with castles, but you know what they do mix well with? A theater. And it goes on and on. Clerics have these beautiful cathedrals they build to their gods. Druids have hidden fortresses in the woods that they perform rituals to their arcane gods to. Fighters have these massive citadels, and sorcerers have their sanctums. Monks have their hidden palaces where they study the arts of martial arts and the way that chi flows through the world. Rangers have, of course, their lodging. It just goes on. And I really liked it. With the rogue, which is basically a glorified pub that they use for skullduggery and meeting the right contacts, they get special effects. Let me just read you one from the rogues. One ally per level of the rogue stronghold can hide in the rogue's domain, and no mundane or magical means will reveal their location. This ability does not work on the owner of the stronghold. The creature trespassing on the rogue's domain have the overwhelming sensation they are being spied upon. When a creature hostile to the rogue and aware of their existence finishes a long rest within the rogue's domain, roll a d20. On a 10 or less, the creature triggers a hidden trap, takes 3d8 piercing damage. That is just for the rogues, and that is domain effects. There's also stronghold actions. For example, all enemies within 60 feet are marked for death. For the next minute, if you hit a marked enemy, you can remove its mark and deal an additional 6d6 damage. That's actually pretty decent. Enemies within 60 feet are revealed, losing stealth and invisibility. You gain a coin of fate. Each time you are hit in combat, you may flip the coin. Heads, the attack misses instead. Tails, the attack hits as normal, and you lose the coin. It also increases your class features. In the rogue's case, after you hit with a sneak attack, you may become invisible. Anything you are wearing and are carrying becomes invisible as long as it is on your person. The effect lasts until the end of your next turn, or until you attack or cast a spell. You can do this a number of times equal to the stronghold's level, after which you may take an extended rest to refresh this ability. And it doesn't end there. There's one final feature of strongholds, and that's the follower element. You see, when you build a stronghold in Matt Colville's extension to D&D, you're going to start bringing in all kinds of people. A fighter might bring some of the greatest soldiers across the land. Maybe an ex-mercenary captain might come to him to serve under his banner. A group of archers who are looking to better their craft, or pledge themselves to great soldiers, or adventurers hoping to maybe get a little bit of that light, that little bit of starlight that these adventurers have to maybe shine on them if they follow them around. And you can get anything from seasoned light infantry, which are literally a company of light infantry who will help you, to orc ambassadors, illusionists, shadow priests. You can get quite a few interesting followers, and that will work for you in your stronghold. I'll admit, it's really cool. It's really interesting, because a lot of the time what ends up happening when you get a stronghold is, yeah, you make a few things. You have your blacksmithery, you have your laboratory for the alchemist in your party, you've got the little rogue's getaway hole, and maybe a church off in the corner for your cleric and paladin to stay in. This actually gives effects to that stronghold that your players have. Or if you have multiple strongholds for each character, they now have effects, which I think is really cool, because it encourages you to build outposts around your world that maybe each player or character controls and works with. And the fact that they are each tailor-made for each kind of class just is a little bit more interesting. It means that you'll have varied strongholds down the road. I'd like to go through all of the things here, but dear God, it gets kind of tongue-twisty, and I don't have the time for a video that long. But maybe if you put enough likes and comments, I'll start reading from this and you can get a better view. The first part for the strongholds, though, that's relatively simple, but that's for player strongholds. You see, Matt Colville also adds in villain strongholds. He makes villain strongholds, or at least a chart for you to work with. I kind of like that. It's an easy bake way for new DMs to make a big bad guy's house. You get a full chart on whether they're lawful good, what alignment they are, what might affect the things, and goes into the kind of mobs that you might meet there. The first part of the book is rather solid. It has about 67 pages, though granted, keep in mind, of those 67 pages, about half of them are explaining the mechanics of these places, which I haven't gone into, and I'm sorry, but I don't want to go into that. And the other half, cut that down to another half, because those are just photos of beautifully rendered photos, but photos nonetheless of these beautiful strongholds. Around page 67, if I can find it real quickly, you get to the Followers tab, which, remember, I mentioned earlier. The followers that will be drawn to your stronghold. This goes into the rules of how they will be used. Followers, or retainers, are of lower level than the PCs. They are basically your minions, and they will help you on your adventures, help you tame new lands, or maybe even fight in conquests in your name if you decide to start your own country. It goes into rules on lieutenants, captains, how they are killed, how they are to be used, how their saving throws, ancestry, everything and anything. Even goes into how they're used in standard combat, which I think is rather cool. And to top it all off, you get some new spreadsheets for some new, I wouldn't call them mobs, but some new stat blocks for some new units that you can have now on your game table that are allies of the players. Troubadours, healers, spirit walkers, shadow priests. He didn't just take mobs from the standard D&D monster manual. He made his own, and he provided their stats and their abilities and their spells. As you continue on with the followers, around page 82, you start to get to the more backline people, the artisans, the blacksmiths, the support classes that will help you on your journey. And it actually goes into pretty nice depth on how it works. How there are multiple levels to artisans' shops that will allow them to create more wonderful things, and puts down a price for each level. For example, first level artisan shop, that's not really going to get you much, but it's not going to cost you anything. While level 2 is going to cost you 1,000 gold, level 3 is going to cost you, I believe, 1,500, and it goes up by 500 gold every time you want to upgrade it. Let's say you want a level 5 shop. That would come roughly to, mathematics in my head, around 7,000. That will allow you to have just about everything and anything you might need, including an alchemist shop. And it's kind of nice because he shows you how to make potions. In this case, different organs produce different things. For example, if you take the eyes of a monster, say a dragon, you get a potion of invisibility to that monster. If, of course, the alchemist doesn't botch the potion making process, but I digress. It's not just potion masters and artisans, though, that make fancy things. It also goes on to blacksmiths, captains of the guard, and builders and farmers and miners and masons and all the things that you'll need to build your stronghold. I think this section of the book is rather nice, but it's about halfway through that the homebrew stuff stops. And what we get is the siege of Castle Rend, the little adventure that I mentioned earlier in the book. And I'll admit, I have not run that adventure yet. But what essentially it is, it works as sort of a tutorial on how all these systems work. And it's rather nice, in my opinion, as it teaches you how to use the different aspects of the castle and how to manage it, and gives you a pretty good story from my reckoning. And you get to meet some interesting new mobs. Of course, you get these beautiful Rends of artwork, and you get a rather long story. I mean, this is no Curse of Strahd, don't get me wrong, but this is a good, at least 3 to 4, maybe even 5 session adventure, depending on how good your DM is and what time you have. I'm assuming you have 4-hour sessions. It all ends with this fight against essentially an orc horde. I think the real ending is this beautiful, I mean beautiful artwork. Look at that. Seriously. It reminds me of some of those books I used to find at the bookstore, which were just filled with fantasy art in it. That's when we start getting into the appendices, and we start meeting some of the monsters that are mentioned in the adventure. And eventually, we also meet some of the gear that you might find in the game for the Siege of Castle Rend. And this is an interesting one. we get new monsters. And I don't mean just another variation of ooze, I mean new monsters. Demons, devils, angels, and I don't really know what to make of it. Technically they're angels, but they're like angels from Berserk, almost. These sort of strange and alien-looking creature, which I appreciate a lot. I used to go and look for these sort of monsters online, just because I liked the beyond human appearance of them. And Matt Colville here has made some very interesting ones. Not too high challenge rating. Saphir here is only, I mean, just look at that. That is a challenge rating 10 monster. Pretty decent, I'd say. And you can bring it in to your standard adventure without TPKing the entire party, of course. You get some, I'll admit, interesting monsters. You get new bosses like the Queen of Bones. It goes into the lore of almost every monster, which is very nice. And I mean, again, look at the artwork here. This is top rate. They were not holding back with the art. All of the creatures that he adds in seem so bizarre and out of this world. And I, as a fan of Lovecraftian horror and cosmic fantasy, really appreciate this. Because this gives a face to so many ideas. And I could build a campaign around every single one of those beautiful artworks. You have, of course, your standard extra mobs, and of course, he adds in a lovely little story there as well, giving you some more taste of what his world is like. Then he goes on to the gem dragons, which I thought I was going to love. I mean, you guys have seen me love dragons. I love dragons. I mean, literally. Dragons populate my room in almost every possible location. I have some over there too, but I love my dragons. So when I saw that he added in new dragons, the gem dragons, I was fairly excited. I always could love it. And the lore behind them is that they're dragons from another world, silicon-based life forms, actually. They seem to use psionic abilities rather than spells, which I thought was interesting because it added a bit of extra flair and touch to them. And they get their own list of specialized spells and abilities. And the stat blocks here are rather interesting too. An ancient emerald dragon, and challenge rating 21. Not bad. Stat line looks nice, though a bit lacking in the constitution of all things. You'd think a dragon that was a gemstone would have better constitution, but I digress. Interesting psychic abilities, which will add in a new twist to your games. And new layer actions, of course. Let's look at the dragons themselves, and for me, they're kind of hit and miss. The emerald dragon here, I love that sort of look. It looks like an earthy dragon with these almost dinosaur-esque pigments and colors. But the ruby dragon, I mean, I know there's some people that would love this one, but it's just not for me. I love the stat lines. I love the abilities. The art definitely does inspire me. As again, he shows this beautiful piece of artwork here. An adventuring party seeing a creature coming out of what looks to be a blue crystal dragon of some kind. Honestly, just get a completely new set of dragons outside of the metallic. Sapphire, emerald, ruby, topaz, of all things. And amethysts, and they look a lot more like cosmic horror sort of creatures. I mean, look at the sapphire dragon, or the topaz dragon. For a final little kick, he adds in the Gemstone Dragon War, which I appreciate because, well, where there's Dragonborn, you gotta have the other kind. So, additionally, he adds in a race. That's cool. You have space, the final frontier, of course, but with these sort of weird creatures that are supposed to be additions to the new gemstone silicon dragons. And you get some really interesting bosses. They kind of remind me of the Dwemer creatures that you meet in Skyrim, but that's just me and I'm weird. I've been praising this book a lot, but I do have an issue with it. There's a very important part of the Strongholds and Followers book, and maybe this is because I probably missed something, but you get some stat blocks like this, which are supposed to be for your followers, and there's no key on how to read it. Attack plus 3, power 6, morale 3, defense 19, toughness 17, size 1d10. It's supposed to represent a block of infantry, but I can't understand it. Maybe it's because I don't really watch Matt Colville's stuff. I usually kind of stick to the lesser YouTube channels on D&D. But other than that, in the back of the book, other than the stat blocks for these creatures and these blocks of infantry, you get some beautiful, beautiful magical items. Codex Multicevalia, oh dear god. The Diplomat's Pouch, the Disruptor Sword, which essentially is supposed to be specifically made for chaotic characters, which I think is pretty cool. And you get all these additionally interesting weapons that are alignment-based. Not many people use alignments anymore. It's kind of just flavor text. This actually uses your alignment. Overall, what's my verdict on this? You have new rules, and these new rules encompass your strongholds and your followers, which makes the game feel a bit larger, because now you can start your own factions and your own castles and whatnot. You get a rather nice adventure, some new interesting boss level angels and demons, and some more minor level monsters, new set of dragons, and an additional race, and lots of interesting new items. This cost me about $50, and it's pretty good. I admit, it is pretty good, but I had a hard time understanding it. It can be very disorganized at times, and there seems to be very little proper sectioning in the book. Some of you, that's not going to bother you, but if it is going to bother you, maybe this isn't the book for you. As for pricing, I'd prefer to see it a little bit cheaper. I've always thought that D&D books I've always been a bit overly priced, but what can you do? I'm glad I have it, but I don't think if I had gone to a bookstore and read through it, that I would have bought it. I feel like the homebrewed items are nice, don't get me wrong, but you can find that stuff online already. And the rules for the Strongholds and Followers, that's nice too. I like it. It makes the DM's life so much simpler that now they have these rules. But again, you can find similar things online. So, is it a good investment? If you like Matt Colville and you want to start making your D&D campaigns more about these sort of grand castles and you guys asserting your influence on the world, go for it. If you want to have these adventures with these space dragons, essentially, highly recommend it. Has some great monsters. Or if you just want a cool little adventure where you guys are running around building castles, great. But for the average D&D player or DM, I'd recommend you wait until it gets down to $35. But for all I know, when this video comes out, it might already be down. That is Matt Colville's self-published Strongholds and Followers. I thank you for watching, guys and gals. This is a bit of a long video, I know, but it's a lot to go through on this one. It tries to touch a lot of bases. Please, as usual, put down your thoughts down in the comment sections below. Did I not give this book justice? Is there any thoughts, things you liked about this book? Did I make you want to buy it, or did I discourage you from it? Please, tell me. I want to know these things, and what should I get involved in down the road? Either way, like, comment, subscribe, you know the jazz to do. Check out the Discord in the description down below, and I hope to be seeing you in the next video. Have a good day.